We're back in the Old West in gold country. Welcome to the Something or Other tour. Those are the ruins of Shasta City behind me. Look at this. Wild West, huh? Honest to goodness Wild West here. Crazy. We talking gold rush? Something or Other tour. We're at the Shasta State Historic Park in Shasta, California. Due to the pandemic, much of this is closed, but there's some stuff to explore outside. So we're gonna check it out, learn the history of the area. The oldest Masonic lodge in California. Opened in 1854. Do you say Masonic or Masonic? I say Masonic because of the street in San Francisco. I'll have to come back and try to get a membership. What is this thing? I found an Illuminati ritual stone thing. Here we got the Coil Foster Barn, originally constructed in the 1850s. It sat at Trinity Center, which was nearby. When they built the Trinity Dam, the whole area was going to be flooded. They donated this barn. It was disassembled and reassembled over here. The barn originally sat at the Holland House Hotel, so when guests came to the hotel on horseback, they would store their horses here, in this barn. Well, not here, but in this barn, elsewhere. Could you imagine riding one of these over the Sierra Nevadas? So cool. Looks like a safe or a lockbox of some sort. Of course, due to the pandemic, it's not open right now. I'm glad we got to at least walk around it. Found a map. It's got a legend, but none of those numbers appear on this map. So I don't know if I'm just slow or if maybe the map's worn away. This is the Shasta County Courthouse Museum, which is unfortunately closed right now. So we'll have to come back. Hard to believe this used to be a bustling commercial center. Tucked down this hill is the Washington Brewery, built in 1855. So you could come on down and get yourself a cold one over here. Must have been a luxury to have a brewery right on the main street. So the saloons were stocked with fresh brewskis all the time. The Washington Brewery was built in 1855 by a guy named Andrew Schuler. Dude, did you come see this basement yet? No, I'll come take a look right now. Look at this. All around you can see old foundations hidden away. There used to be so many more buildings out here. There's a cemetery up on the hill, but the trail up to it says private property, no trespassing. Maybe one day I could get access because it looks pretty cool. Just north of the Shasta downtown, there's a historical marker here called the Pioneer Baby's Grave. George and Helena Cohn Brownstein from Red Bluff, which is a bit a ways south, had their infant son Charles pass away, unfortunately, back in 1864. Now they were Jewish heritage and there was no Jewish cemeteries in Red Bluff. In Shasta though, there was a small Jewish community. So they made the trek from Red Bluff to Shasta, which now it's a short drive. Back then, it was a pretty big journey. And they buried young Charles right here. Charles's grave was so important to the area that they actually diverted the highway to avoid it. And people are leaving behind toys and stuff still to this day. How cool is that, Charles? Huh? Wherever you are. Over 150 years later, still remembered, still getting presents. So here's to you, Charles, forever known as the Pioneer Baby. They have markers out here showing where some of the more famous landmarks and buildings were. In 1848, not long after gold was discovered in Coloma, 200 miles south of here, the first gold discovered in California, the only white settler in the area, Pearson B. Redding, was prospecting along the Trinity River. He found gold. So Mr. Redding started making wagons full of money, and as it went back then, word got out, people started flooding the area, and soon a camp sprang up. And they called it Redding Springs, after good old Pearson. Redding Springs had such a great central location. It had the river so the boats could stop near here. The stagecoaches all stopped here if they're going north up to Oregon from San Francisco or Sacramento, or south from Oregon. This was a great location. It had gold, it had lumber. So Redding Springs got bigger and bigger, and then they wanted to give it an official name. They came together, they named it Shasta City. I believe the old Shasta blacksmith shop is open during non-pandemic times. This is the Litch General Store. The general store is closed, but I did get lucky and a ranger went in, so I got to peek in. It looks amazing, can't wait to come back. Well, what do we have here? Wow! The butcher shop sat right here. Back then, we didn't have refrigerators. I don't know if you guys knew that. So they built this cold storage room into the side of the hill. Looks like something out of Indiana Jones, huh? Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? This was Peter Hoff's butcher shop. Built in 1855, destroyed in a fire in 1878. So if you wanted to keep stuff cool, dig into the mountain. It's very cool down there. Wow. By 1854, this was the longest row of brick buildings in California, north of San Francisco. This row here is called the South Side Ruins. They have these signs that detail a bunch of the history, how they preserved them, what was sitting here. Shasta City grew and grew until eventually it was the county seat of the newly formed Shasta County. It was a bona fide commercial hub. So during the gold rush, it was a mad dash. Every time they'd hear, oh, gold was found over here, everyone would rush over there. At least the unlucky ones. They kept trying to chase that fortune. So some that came to try to find their fortune were unlucky, but when they see a commercial hub forming with stage routes, river routes, all coming together, they see opportunity. So many of them had given up careers wherever they came from, whether it be back east or even other countries. So they started to apply the trades that they had abandoned, instead of being in the river prospecting and what have you. So you got your barbers, your dentists, your lawyers, blacksmiths, butchers, janitors, journalists, tech support, social media influencers, stylists, physical trainers, trading card collectors, gym teachers, bricklayers, professional wrestlers, deep sea scuba divers, and of course, YouTubers. But it wasn't paradise forever. When the Transcontinental Railroad reached this area, instead of Shasta City, they decided on Redding. So the railroad came to Redding, Shasta was therefore bypassed. And because people had come here seeking opportunity, they soon saw that the opportunity lied down the road in Redding. So people started moving there en masse. Some of them even taking apart their buildings to use the building materials to build somewhere new in Redding. Shasta City started to dwindle, it became a ghost town. They even removed a lot of the tin from the top of these buildings for the war effort, World War II. But fortunately, enough people saw how important Shasta was to the history of this area And then in 1950, what was left was designated a historical landmark and became a state park. And now we get to come enjoy it today. So the history of Redding Springs, spelled different from the other Redding that took its place, is saved and preserved. They say this place was so busy in its heyday that it was dangerous to cross this street. There was so much traffic, wagons, horses, people. There was 2 devastating fires in Shasta, and after the big one in 1853, they said no more of that. That was no fun. So they started rebuilding everything with brick and iron. And that's why we still have these ruins today. See the runoff tunnels in between the buildings. Crazy to think people lived here. This was their livelihood. This was everything. Right off Main Street, down French Alley, they have the Schoolhouse. Kids used to just walk to school just like I'm doing right now. Huh? Get their lessons. Much different style schoolhouse than you usually see in the Old West. So maybe this is the schoolhouse, and then this is administration or a new schoolhouse. Has a basement. I wish I could go down there so bad. I'm guessing that's the old flagpole. All right, and there's a concrete thing. Looks like a monument, but it doesn't say anything. Or it's been worn away. Oh no, it looks like there used to be a sign up. Screw holes, but the sign's gone. Pretty cool stuff. I can't wait to learn more when it's actually all open. It's about 1,000 feet elevation here, maybe a little more than that, which if you remember, Bodie is like 8,000 feet elevation. So Bodie's always cool. It's not cool here. It's like over 100 degrees. Unfortunately, with all these new settlers coming in, there's a Native American tribe in this area called the Wintu, and the settlers started mining, and mining leaves a lot of pollution, a lot of runoff, especially when they did hydraulic mining, which is where they basically take a giant hose and just fire it at the hillside and let the hill erode and reveal the gold. So all that runoff would get into the streams, kill the native salmon, and then the Native Americans had no source of food. So while telling the story of Shasta City and Redding, can't forget the Wintu. Crazy how much timber is still coming through here. And of course, not too far from here is Mount Shasta. There's a lot of things named Shasta around here. We talking Gold Rush? And that, my friends, is the Shasta Historic Park. At least what's open during the pandemic. We will be back when it's fully open. Remember, if you like this sort of thing, check our playlists. We have a Wild West playlist with a bunch of cool videos, as well as sports stuff, museums, abandoned places. Check the playlist. A lot of cool stuff there. If you'd like to support more of these adventures, please check out our Patreon. We have some exclusive content on there, including a behind-the-scenes podcast. As always, there's gonna be more from the Old West, from Gold Country. Like, subscribe, share, do all the cool things that cool kids do. Bird Life, Something or Other Tour. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I sure did. This park encompasses what used to be basically a little town. So it's very hard to tell where it ends, where it begins, what's private property, what's part of the park. Because I think that's private property right there. It's hard to tell. I keep seeing lizards and other critters, but I'm not fast enough with the camera. All right, time to get back to dry land. I got a 4-hour drive ahead of me.